Welcome back. If you haven't already, please log into the back end of your website and ensure you're in the WooCommerce settings area. And we're going to be clicking on this tax tab to do the taxes. Please, if you do not have this tab, please ensure to click on the General tab here and ensure you've enabled taxes and tax calculations in this page underneath General. And then click Save Changes, and that should enable this tab up at the top. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And so here we're going to go through each of the settings that it's going to give us for the tax options, and hopefully we can understand this one. So the first option here is prices entered with taxes. So yes, I will enter prices inclusive of tax, or no, I'll enter prices exclusive of taxes. Most of the time, most places have the tax displaying separately. So if you paid $5 for something and then you're paying 7% tax, it would show $5 and then the tax, whatever that code is, and then how much 7% of that would be. This would be instance of like gas as an example, where a lot of the times you see the taxes calculated within the gas rate. At least that's how it is here in Canada. But so most of the time you want to have it exclusive of tax. And to calculate tax based on the customer's shipping address. So you can obviously change that between the billing address or shop base. Now that would depend on your country rules. Most of the time it's where I believe it's where you're shipping it to. So in Canada is, if somebody from the province of Alberta buys from the store, they wouldn't have to pay the BC provincial taxes on there. They would just have to pay the Alberta tax because that's where it's being shipped to. Okay, so I'm just going to leave that customer shipping address as that's what it's calculating the tax based on. The shipping tax class, and this is this particular one here is specifically based on actually the tax that you're calculating on the actual shipping charge. Okay, and so you might want to maybe have a zero rate. For instance, if you're not charging any taxes on shipping, you can do zero rate or standard, basically a standard tax class on that one. And we're going to get back to that. So we might want to come back here, so we're just going to leave it as default. Rounding. So rounding at the subtotal level instead of the rounding per line. This is really depending on your bookkeeping preference. I would say round at this probably. I would say round at the per line level is fine on that. I think the difference would be in the pennies on that one. Additional tax classes is we have two here, and I believe you can just enter and have a new class here if you have another one, which we'll be getting into. And displaying the prices in the tax shop. Do you want to include tax as part of the price display or excluding tax? That again is dependent on the rules in your country. Here we can do it excluding tax. And during the checkout process, we want to, of course, if depending on your country, your prices will exclude the taxes. You want to show that the tax itemized at the bottom. Okay, and is there any sort of price display suffix you want? And here you can hover over and see what it's looking for here. So this is for instance, if you're including a tax right in your price, you can go including, like in here, in this case, it would be including VAT, for instance. If you had a sales tax, say including tax, so Inc tax or something like that, and that would add to the back of the price. And really you only need to do that if you're choosing to actually include the taxes in your prices. Okay, and displaying tax totals, I would say as a single total or itemized. I would show itemized, and the reason why is because if you have multiple taxes in Canada, there is provincial tax and there is sales tax on each item, so you would want those two as being itemized, so instead of just being combined one tax. Okay, so now that we've saved that, we can go check out to see what kind of rate options that they have up here. So up here we have standard rate, reduced rates, and zero rates. Each of these have separate tables. So if I'm going to click on one of them, here is a table and it doesn't have anything in this table, and same with reduced rates and zero rates. Okay, this gives you a little bit more flexibility on how you want to do your rate calculation. So it can get as advanced and as difficult as you want to make it. And the reason why you need to have different rate options is if you have products which require different tax rates depending on the product, you would have to set up these different rate options, and then you can when you're creating a product, you would have to select there what type of rate that you are going to use for that product. For the most part, you're probably just going to use a standard rate option on what you're going to do. So if you're in Canada and you're shopping from this province or this province or this province, this is what the rate percentage. Or if you're from the States and there's different sales tax rates there, you would select the country and the state and put what that rate is, and it's standard across the board. But again, if there's something that you would not charge tax on specifically, depending on the country, you would have to select those different options. Now, let's say these ones don't make sense to you. You can always click back on the tax options here, and let's say you don't like the word standard, you can do like Canadian rate or something like that. Okay, then you can save changes there and it will add a Canadian rate or rates. And I can just use this one instead. Okay, so you can pick whatever way you want to do that. I'm just going to use the standard rates, and we're going to insert a new tax code. Okay, so I'm going to insert a row. I'm just going to show you how to do that. Now you can import a CSV file. Basically, you can make one of those in Excel. You can also export one to see what the format's like to just load these very fast. There is lots of places online that you can Google to find out what tax rates are for where. And I'm going to show you an example. So when it says star here, it means all countries. Every time it has star, that represents all. So if I wanted to do a tax rate on every single country, I go, shift star, okay? Or I think you can leave it blank. So, and then it'll do all of it, but we can do that. So in our case though, we're not, right? We're going to do CA for Canada, and the state code, for instance, BC in British Columbia. Okay, and you can even set postal codes. I'm going to say star. I mean, that's really getting into the nitty gritties. Any city, I'm going to charge a 5% government sales tax on that, and it's at the top priority. Okay, and we're going to say that also is going to charge. We're going to charge that on shipping as well. Compounding is if you're going to compound a rate off of another rate, which in Canada we do not compound our sales taxes. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and save that. Now there's a secondary tax on that, and I believe it's 7%, and that is our provincial sales tax. Okay, and that priority is also 1. Those are 2 top priorities. That's fine. Or you can put, maybe this priority is number 2. That's fine. I'll just leave it as 1. It is not compounded together, and we also charge that on shipping, say. So I'm going to go ahead and change that. So I would do that for every province, for instance, in Canada. And if I had some sort of tax that I needed to charge for the US, I can just do, like, as an example, US, all right, and all states, I would charge, let's say I had to charge a certain amount here, I would put that rate in there and do that. Okay, I am not going to do that. We're just going to leave that blank, or we can actually remove that row by removing selected rows. Or if you had to charge a VAT tax, you could do that as here as well, if you didn't have to include it in the price. So that's how you do the taxes in a nutshell. So when we actually go testing the cart, you're going to see that it will add these taxes to it, and it should add that 12% onto the price. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and save those changes, and there's nothing I need to add in here. Zero rates would be if a particular product didn't require any taxes on it. I would select that when I'm creating the product. Okay, so that's taxes in a nutshell. Again, you can Google where to find this information depending on where your country is, and you should be able to fill this out quite easily.